Welcome to the Driving Change podcast on the Evergreen Podcast Network, where we live at the intersection of neuroscience and storytelling. If you love great stories and you love understanding the mindset it takes to be a world-class change agent, then join us as our fascinating guests from all walks of life unpack their unique journeys of perseverance and passion, of expertise and experience, and be inspired to use your own story to drive change. All right, so we're going to come back now. We're going to pick the conversation back up where we left off in the last episode with Andy Andrews, Bob Beaudine, and Jimmy Yeary. And we're going to kick into this next episode where Jimmy starts to talk a little bit about his mindset around preparation and stretching yourself into areas that maybe you didn't expect you'd be in when you started your career, with Jimmy being a singer-songwriter and now being an amazing keynote speaker, and the preparation it takes to move into that next stage to be great at something. Let's pick it back up where we left off. Jimmy, you said this earlier. I'd like you to touch on this because one of the things I love about Jimmy so much is he does have this humility about him. Now, false humility is just another form of pride, by the way. I just feel like I'm supposed to tell you that.
That's a word. Thank you.
Have you ever met somebody?
that was just a lightning
bolt.
I don't know.
Have you ever met somebody that they talked about humility and they talked about being humble and they talked about the greatness of humility and the importance of humility in their life? And you're listening to them and you're kind of thinking, you seem very proud of being humble.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. But what I was going to ask you, Jimmy, was, and you've been speaking enough now. I think it's fun for me. Like when I go to these large events, and they have and you guys know you've spoken. They've got the television down in front of the stage, and they call it a confidence monitor. And to your point, dovetailing off of Bob's point on the no notes, and they're almost always shocked when I say I don't really need it. If you hired me and paid me all this money and you need to do something to give me more confidence, you should have you might have picked a different speaker.
In the 8th grade, my English teacher called that cheating.
That's right. Today they just call it ChatGPT, but we'll get onto that later. But anyways, Jimmy, what I wanted to ask you about was, you mentioned something that I think is so important. And if you tether the two together with what Bob said, is this preparation concept. Is you said something earlier about what just causes you, because you're very comfortable. If I told you to grab your guitar and get up on a stage and play 15 songs, I mean, you could do that in your sleep and not even worry and blink. But now that you're becoming a much more recognized keynote speaker, where you don't have your guitar with you the whole time, you mentioned that, you're still getting a little nervous about that because it's a newer thing for you, even though you feel called into it. So it causes you to dive into the preparation even further. How would you coach others out there around the balance between that preparation to make sure the information's in there, but then being open, to Bob's point, around letting the voice come in to guide you and maybe take you off script a little bit where necessary? Well, what's the balance?
Okay, so first of all, I've surrounded myself for years with people a lot smarter than me, and now it's not work.
That hasn't been hard to do, Jimmy. That hasn't been.
Well, listen. That was my point, Andy. I was going to say that it has not done me well as of late, because now I'm the dummy in the group of all the smart people. So. So I tell people, if you're going to go speak, if you're going to get up and do anything like that, for me, I believe if at the point at which you go, I'm ready, you're probably about half ready, maybe if you're lucky. I tell my son who's learning guitar, he will play whenever somebody comes around and there's a crowd of people, and I'll say, hey, grab your guitar and play a couple chords. You play them so awesome. And so he'll grab his guitar and then he'll start playing, and he'll mess up, and he seems baffled by that. And I remind him, Aiden, you are only as good as you are when people are watching you. You are only as good as you are when people are watching you. When he goes out and he shoots baskets out back of our house, and where he's swishing them and he's going crazy, and he's Michael Jordan, and then he gets in the game and he's 0 for 7 and he's depressed on the ride home. And I just remind him, I don't rub it in his face, but listen to me, just don't get too discouraged. But you are that player that played tonight. You want to be a better player, get more prepared. But when people are watching you, how you perform is where your level of expertise at any given thing is, I believe. And that's been true with me. And it's, I remind my kids, and I never remind my wife of that, of course. So.
Let me just say one addition to that thought. So I had 24 pages of notes for my talk on Sunday. I didn't use them, but I did the writing of every single one of them to kind of think through, oh my gosh, I got to put, where am I going? And then what Don does, he puts it all together. So I agree with you, Jimmy. I mean, you know, you got to be around people. You got to get up and you got to dare yourself to do it and to be in front of them. And that's why I've always liked Andy, because he's like Hal Holbrook, one of my favorite speakers in the past, because he can get up and do an entire story and tell a story and like I'm mesmerized. And then all of a sudden he goes out and talks to someone in the stands in the middle of the stage and the man's crying. I mean, he's holding his heart. And I hold my heart when I hear your songs, Jimmy. I mean, it's just like that. It's just fantastic. So I'm honored to be with all you guys.
No, that practice aspect and that aspect of doing it over and over again and being what you are when people are watching. There was something an old man told me one time. He said the difference in an amateur and a pro is an amateur will practice until he gets it right, and a pro will practice until he can't get it wrong.
Mm.
Mm. Come on now. Okay. I hope someone's writing out there. This is good stuff.
Yeah, that's good.
That was it Tony Robbins, I think, whether he coined the phrase initially or not, but said that people are rewarded in public for what they've practiced for years in private. And I think that's exactly what you're saying, Jimmy, what you all are saying together. And I try to help encourage people. If you see somebody do something and you think that they just have a God-given gift to do that, I promise you're wrong. When you look at someone and go, oh my gosh, they are amazing at X, that just has to be a God-given ability. I promise you're wrong. They might have been given the seed of purpose within that, skill or that gift. But I believe personally, it was that countless hours of obsessive preparation that turned it into unconscious competence. And I just wanted you guys to kind of expound on that a little bit, because you guys are experts in your field. And I think sometimes people look at you and go, man, look, I drive your truck, Jimmy. I pulled the lyrics apart, and that's you just have a unique gift that's unique. He does. He's a bit of a songwriting savant. However, I know him well enough now to know the kind of hours he puts into every word of every phrase of every song. And I know, Bob, you do the same thing when you're prepping for a message. And Andy, I know you do the same thing when you're prepping for a message, even if it's one you've given 1,000 times.
Let me tell you a secret to Jimmy's greatness. There are 5,000 songwriters out there who know how to write a song. Jimmy knows why a song works as it does. He knows why you write this way. And knowing, anybody can understand a principle. Anybody can use a principle. Anybody knows how to use a principle. But when you know why a principle works as it does, you can begin to apply that principle in areas that you see it fits that other people never even see. And that takes hours of, Jimmy's been given a gift, but he's developed a skill around that gift. And so, the preparation, the hours of thought that go into it, because he could get a thesaurus and just rhyme stuff, but I've written songs with Jimmy, and sometimes I get frustrated with Jimmy because I'm like, it's fine. This is it. Yes. Jimmy's still searching, but that's the difference in somebody, because I know how to write a song. I know how. Okay, but Jimmy knows why this works as it does.
It's the same thing in looking for jobs. I'm a CEO of an executive search firm. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about them. The answer is, how much preparation did you do for the person you're sitting across? If you're looking for a job, they're the who. They're the person who matters most. Do you know him or her? Do you know their best friend? Because if you know that person, you have an 87% chance of getting the deal. I mean, what were you thinking? This isn't about stuff and skills and this. I mean, if talent was the reason everyone had jobs, we wouldn't have Congress and Senate.
Again, I hope people are writing this down. There's another quotable. Someone hashtag that one out there.
It's great. Great.
Well, then this does lead me to kind of where I wanted to go next, which was around the secret of each of your individual successes. And I think people, again, look at this. I do believe, Andy, you're touching on it, is some people, we look at them and think they're just intuitively good. And what I found is I've gotten to know people who are really good at something. They're not intuitively good. They started off with an intuition around something, but then they become very intentionally good through repetition, discipline, a process that and maybe they can't always articulate it, but they are following some type of a mechanism, system, or process with discipline in all aspects of their life. And I just thought maybe that would be something for you guys to share, not your perfect secret to success, but do you have a way of thinking around how you approach life in general and the way that you're called to around that idea of how did you go from intuitively good to intentionally good so that you could be consistently great? I know it was deep. You want to take a moment to pause and think that one over. It's okay.
Andy was saying a while ago about sometimes he'll get frustrated with me over a line in a song because he's a wonderful writer and a wonderful songwriter. And we've written some great songs and had wonderful recordings together. But what Andy doesn't realize, like, I may not be great at a lot of things or understand a lot of things. But I understand lyrics and the structure of a song. And so while he's like, a lot of times writers will have lines that work, I've already gone through that line in my head that they love so much. And then I've gone through probably 50 other lines surrounding that. And that's, again, you talk about just years of doing it, studying it. I always rely on listen, it's whether I'm getting up and speaking or I'm writing a song or I'm performing for somebody. If I don't feel it, you ain't going to feel it. People smell it. They know it. And if you really want to touch somebody through lyrics, through songs, through a talk, go to the core of your story, go to the core of your emotion. And that's really that's really what I'm relying on when it comes to lyrics, when it comes to all that. So, but just you do it so long that there's this natural sort of wheel spinning in my head and going through all of these possibilities. But at the core of it, it's the one that emotionally I'm feeling the most. That way it can connect with other people.
Bob, how about you or Andy? What relative to that kind of discipline of process around the things that you do behaviorally that whether to Jimmy's point through repetition have gotten you really good, unconsciously competent or not?
So I go back. One of the things that really touches my heart is that so moms and dads can kind of do something with you to start with to get you to understand who you are. And so, you are not like anyone else. You don't have a thumbprint like anyone else. You were created to do something, you individually, one thing better than anyone in the world. And it's our job of our friends and our family and the parents around you to encourage you and to remind you who you are and whose you are in the path. And so one of the things that's so important is that a parent can someone do, and I'm flipping the subject a little bit, but coming back to it, and that is that 70% of men today have never had their dads ever tell them they love them. And so the problem exists is that they're constantly striving for something that keeps them away from that in your calling and the thing you do. And so it was like a simple enemy attack that tricked you into doing that. And then you're off. It's like Jimmy was saying earlier, one argument with your wife or something took away the pennies in your jar. You have one argument, you lost 25% of your energy. You just sunk. And so I'm not going to be fooled into it. If a dad would just stop tonight, lay their hands on their kids and say, I love you, I'm proud of you, and I give you my blessing, this changes everything. Now, if you believe in me, I think I can do it. And now you're introducing me to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, who actually is empowering me to do it. And I'm sitting having a conversation with him in the morning. I'm not just talking at him. I just don't know of him. I know him because he talks to me. And so now I've strengthened. And so I feel energized, and that allows me to then feel like, dang it, I got to do what I'm called, my assignment, purpose, and destiny. And so that just kind of energizes me.
Well, and Bob, if I could be so bold before you go, knowing you like I do, I know that you have this unique calling to speak those words of blessing and favor into people. Like you have it, whether you developed it when you were 12 or whether it took you a lifetime to get there, you have that gift that we should all possess, right? Is that willingness to speak power of truth and love into people for what we see them as, because we don't see ourselves the way others see us. And we need someone sometimes to remind us of who we are and that we are meant for a purpose and we're great. And the other thing I want to underscore that you said that's really so important is the number one primary job of a father is that. And if 70% of them don't do it, now you know why we're running around in the chaos we are in the world, right? So good. Andy, how about you?
I know that there are people that are following a pattern and they are on the right pattern and they can't really articulate why. I would really urge those people to stop and be quiet and figure out how to articulate why. God doesn't want you to be confused. And there is an answer. And this is, I call that thinking deeply or thinking to the bottom of the pool, going as far as you can, and then putting your feet against that concrete and having that power to push against. And so I think those deep understandings tend to come when we are intentional about listening. Years ago, I realized I was getting answers at 3 different times in my life. I would wake up with an answer, I would get an answer in the shower, and I'd get an answer in a tree stand out in the woods. And the one thing that those 3 things had in common is there was no outside, there's no radio, there's no TV, there's nothing going on. It was quiet. And I imagined somebody coming to me and saying, hey, I need your help. I've got a real problem and I need your help. And I would go, well, okay, absolutely, I'll help you. And then they left. And I go, wow, what's that about? And then, next day they came and said, hey, I'm still needing help and this is getting worse. And you said you'd help me. And so are you going to help me or not? And I'd say, yeah, of course. And then they said, oh, good, thanks. And then they left. I would say, what's up with that? But I can't tell you how many times I have prayed, God, I need an answer here. I've got to have an answer. And, Lord, you know that I'm in need. You know I need help, and please help me. Amen. Okay, let me check my email. And I can just see God going, I would love to help you, but you got to give me a second. And people say, wow, I feel closer to God in the woods than I do in church. And I bet God goes, I bet you do. It's the only time you shut up.
See, the one mistake you made was just not at the end of that prayer asking God if he would communicate to you via email.
Yeah. God, I'll be on my email immediately after this. If you could.
If you wouldn't mind, send me a text or an email. That'd be great. I'm going to be a little distracted for a minute. This is good. I know we're coming up on time here, and I want to honor your all's time. This has been so amazingly valuable to me. I get so much energy from this. The team always jokes around when I get to do a podcast episode like this, like I'll be on cloud 9 the rest of the day, because this is just life to me. Like this is life to me, right? This gives me so much energy to go back out in the world and try to help people learn what I just learned from the 3 of you and apply it in some meaningful way. So as we start to think about round and third here on the show, what is the one or two, as we think, I've been really challenged lately with this next generation. My daughter's 23, my son's 19, my youngest daughter's 11. And I see them so challenged with the noise right now between social media and AI and all the outside noise. There's so many positive things out there, but there's so much noise that they have to filter through that we didn't have to filter. What are you giving that younger generation from an advice standpoint to help them, Andy, to your point, get to that tree stand, get to that think-a-later in the shower, which is what I call mine, where all my ideas come from. How are you helping that younger generation, or what advice would you give them to be able to get there, knowing they're bombarded with way more input than we ever got in our time? Because I think that's a big deal to where we're going next as a society.
I think
whoever wants to jump in on this one, it's a big
conversations
one.
are the answer. I think conversations, I think lack of conversations has yielded this problem. And I think conversations between adults and young people need to happen. Seriously. When we were growing up, we wanted to be adults. We wanted to sit at the big table. And our mom told us, you can sit there as long as you're quiet, but if you call attention to yourself, you're going to bed. And so we would sit there and listen to them talk. And we'd get in the back seat in the car on a long trip and listen to our parents talk, or listen to our dad talk to a friend of his. And we were on the front porch and we listened to our parents talk to people who stopped by. And we were very aware that sometimes our parents were talking to people we knew they didn't like them. We knew they didn't agree with them, but we watched those conversations, and sometimes we're able to take part in those conversations. And so somewhere along the line, that turned into mom putting the kids in the playroom and telling the adults, okay, I got the kids in the playroom. They got their food. They got a movie. I told them if they come out, they're going to bed. And, you put them in the back seat. Here's your headphones. Here's your screen. We'll be at grandma's house in 3 hours, and then you can go play with your Game Boy there. And so we, as adults, have set up a universe in which these kids have nowhere else to turn but to these devices, and it's a sad thing, because now it's doubled back on the adults. And you can't believe how many adults that I talk to that say, my kids just, we don't talk. And I'll say, well, what is the conversation like? And they'll say, well, after school. I'll say, how was school? And they'll say, fine. Well, what happened today? Nothing. Well, come on, you were there 7 hours. Something happened. Mom, nothing. Okay, nothing. Same thing that happened yesterday. You ask me this every day. Nothing. And so the parent can either follow them in and push it and get into an argument with it, or they can let it go and just not talk. And so that's what's happened. Television shows are not created anymore for parents and children to watch together. And so everything is a separation. We created wisdomharbor.com to bring families and bring young people and adults together. Wisdomharbor.com. It's a streaming service, $27 a year, and our stated goal is to create America's next greatest generation, starting with your hometown, your family, your school system. And we've got people that contribute to that. Jimmy is a contributor to wisdomharbor.com. Jimmy actually gives guitar lessons on Wisdom Harbor. Families can take guitar lessons together. Classes can take them together. And, from an award-winning songwriter. So, but we've got to devise ways to get the conversations going again.
Yes. Love it. So engage in that younger generation intentionally with things that matter to them, that keep us in the conversation. Bob or Jimmy, what do you guys think about this subject?
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Well, I think, okay, I'll let Bob go last because he's smarter. But I think of time when, like Andy said earlier, quality and quantity. I typically find that my kids, if given the opportunity, will pick me over Fortnite, that they'll pick me over their iPad. they'll pick me over their friends, even if I'm there and I'm present and I give them that time. So I really do try to give them all the time I can. I remind myself that 15 years from now, I'm going to look back, because I got younger kids, 12, 8, 7. I'm going to look back and I don't want to be heartbroken for a second over time that I didn't give them, and times that I wasn't present. And secondly, I leave things in there and around them, instrument. Well, I got pianos out in the open. I got banjo, mandolin, guitars. So I know the art of music, how powerful that is for somebody's well-being, their confidence, and how that just builds the brain to a greater level. So I leave those around. I find that they prefer those as well, and they're all learning instruments. And then I've got to push them a little bit as well, but giving them time and other options. And then I've got to be out of the room here in 10 minutes, because I got my middle child is trying to, he's Fortnite. He's waiting for Fortnite. So, I'm gonna tell him no, but just giving myself as an option. They tend to want to pick me. Kids want their daddies.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm older, and I got 3 girls. My oldest 38, and I got 36 and 33 now. And I mean, hard to believe, but one of the fun things I got to remind parents who are listening is, listen, your kids want to talk at different times, and you have to be ready for their time. It's not your time. If my daughter, she wants to talk and do a FaceTime with me. I'm so honored that she wants to do a FaceTime with me, at 9:00 at night. And we do. And we talk about all her stuff. She's an Instagram influencer. And so we're talking about her stuff. And I just listen and just let her do it and congratulate her and constantly tell her how much I love her. My middle daughter, she likes mornings. And so she does it. And, and my youngest, I don't know, it's outrageous times. I mean, she's never going to do it. And so, but when she does, are you ready? Are you available? I mean, that's a crucial deal today. I mean, if you're listening to Jimmy and Andy and Jeff today, listen, you're either there or you're not. And so I'll just leave one other little tip. My dad would send me notes, something great that Jimmy wrote. And he says, "This is you, Bob. This is who I want you to understand who you're in. And here's a little story. I took this little quote that Andy did, and this is who you are. And I'm so proud of you. I just love you." And I'll tell you what, they're going to see that email. They're going to see that text. They're going to see whatever it is that you do it. And then you tell them you love them and you're proud of them. And they will never forget that. People are starving today to be affirmed and loved and hugged. And that's what we were created to do.
That's so good. That's so good. Wow. You guys, the audience, you didn't know you're getting all kinds of, we're getting parenting advice, you're getting business advice, you're getting speaking advice, you're getting all of it. So, well, great. As we close down, Jimmy, where can people go to learn more about you and maybe book you for speaking? And obviously they know where you can find all your songs. Just go to iTunes and YouTube, but where can they go to find more about how to reach you?
Yeah, just go to music.com. You'll hear everything. No, at Yeary Jimmy. That humility. I practice it, Jimmy. At Jimmy Yeary. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook. Go to jimmyyeary.com and kind of see more of what I do in the storytelling aspect and how that's useful for connecting with others. And and thank you for having me, Jeff.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Bob, how about you? Where can we learn more about you and how to reach you and your books and how to speak, book you for speaking and all that fun stuff as well?
You go to bobbeaudine.com and it's French. It's Beaudine. It's bobbeaudine.com. And then I'm on all of the internet and all that stuff. And I only reason is I'm up in 2 chairs and God's given me inspiration and I write it down and I put it up every day. And it's, people look and go, "Who's your social media person?" I ain't got no social media person. I'm sitting with God and I'm just telling you, He wanted to inspire you guys. That's all I do.
That's awesome. And Andy, finally, last but certainly not least, where can we learn more about you and how to get your books and book you for speaking and Wisdom Harbor and all the fun stuff you got going on?
Three ways. AndyAndrews.com, WisdomHarbor.com, and CreatingMeasurableResults.com.
Wow. Well, I can tell you, I'm so glad that I rowed my boat into this wisdom harbor today. See there, Jimmy? I got a little creativity. See what I did there?
Yeah, now rhyme it, okay?
Yeah. Harbor. Yeah. Give me a minute. So, I want to thank you guys again. This has been an honor. This is going to be one of our most watched episodes. I have no doubt. And, just thrilled that we can come together like this and hopefully add a little more value into the world, a little positivity as well. So thank you.